Welcome back. You're still tuned to Business Review, only on SABC News International. Now, 2010 is a make it or break it year for South African power utility Eskom. It has already started holding public meetings on tariffs, and it faces a daunting task of providing sustainable power during the Soccer World Cup later this year. Against this backdrop, there is an upcoming conference, the African Utility Week, which will be held in Durban here in South Africa next month. To discuss this milestone, challenges and plans for the crucial year ahead for South Africa, I'm joined in our Cape Town Sea Point studios by Nicholas McDiarmid, an expert on the African power industry and editor of ESI Africa, a power trade journal. Nicholas, thank you so very much for your time and welcome to Business Review.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what is the current status of the African power grid, having in mind the supply and the constantly rising demand?
Well, I think, as was mentioned in an earlier story, economic recovery is likely to begin in South Africa particularly, and if that will be across the continent. And unfortunately, an economic recovery could well lead to a rush on energy. One of the reasons we recovered from the blackouts in 2008 wasn't necessarily because of a rapid amount of new energy on the grid. It was really rather because of a slowdown in demand as a result of the slowdown in the economic growth, and indeed into a recession. So we now have to deal with that. At the moment, I'm sure you're aware, the public hearings are on. Today they're being held in Cape Town, and those hearings are really to determine a multi-year price hike, tariff increase for Eskom. They initially aimed that at 45%. They reduced that to 35%, and they did that move publicly, which I think was really a little bit of spin on Eskom's side. At the moment, we have NERSA conducting these hearings, in essence, to create a dialogue between the public, between industry and the electricity supply industry, in this case Eskom. But we must remember that government is the 100% shareholder of Eskom, and we need to really ask government to step forward and provide clarity on the issues facing us today in South Africa. We need at this point to get beyond the spin. We need to understand that our current power crisis and lack of generation capacity is not an apartheid legacy issue. Indeed, in 1994, we had an excess of power on the grid and had to mothball stations. What happened was government essentially, under the Thabo Mbeki government, flouted the white paper on energy, and all of the profits from Eskom at that stage went directly into government coffers. They did not go into new build projects as they ought to have. The warning was clear in the white paper, and those warnings were not heeded. At the same time, millions upon millions have been squandered in the Pebble Bed modular reactor project, which of course was under the Department of Public Enterprise at that stage under Alec Irwin. Now that would be under Barbara Hogan. And we really need to know what's happened to those millions, and we really need to know what expectations we can have, because those expectations were already meant to have been delivered in 2000, and it is now 2010. So the lack of finance at the moment, which these current tariff increases are meant to cover, are essentially the result of absolute mismanagement, and the public and industry really deserve to be treated with respect and to really be playing open cards at this stage as far as government's concerned. Now, Africa Utility Week, which is taking place in February, and it's going to be in KwaZulu-Natal this year, is co-located with Power in Durban. The two conferences have become really the platform in which government, NERSA, the energy regulator, and industry really create a dialogue, not only from a technical perspective, where the newest technologies are looked into and explained, where from an energy efficiency perspective, new technologies that could literally save the utility from building an entirely new power station, as well as new policy, new regulations, and new financial apparatus can be explored at Power in Durban between the very high-level delegates that attend. Okay. This year we're expecting... Yes.
Let me just interject there, because you're now talking about Eskom and just delving on a whole lot of issues, particularly with regards to price increase. And maybe let's unpack it in this way. With regards to the very price increases, how will it impact, one, on households, and secondly, on the industry at large?
Well, the latest research indicates that 8 out of 10 people will not be able to survive that increase, literally from an economic perspective. It's certainly not only going to dig into the pockets of the middle class, it's going to impact every consumer in South Africa. It's going to also have an unfortunate impact on consumer spending, in addition to which informal employment opportunities are going to be significantly reduced. Industry, as we heard in an earlier story on this program, SAPI have already indicated that the level, I mean, I think they said it was $1 billion, was it $1 billion? Or, yeah, I think it was $1 billion electricity bill each year. That's not sustainable for them. So this is not realistic. I have all faith in NERSA. The national regulator has traditionally acted as a very sound protector of the public and of industry. And I trust that the right thing will happen here. But what we really need to see, and this is where Power in Durban has traditionally been a good forum for these discussions, is far more creative solutions than that. We need to start looking at the privatization of power stations. We need to start looking at creating a stable environment for independent power producers to come online. We've been getting such mixed messages from Eskom. Eskom is still the sole purchaser of power in South Africa. Last year, we had Chairman Bobby Godsell and CEO Jacob Marocha making a lot of noise about how much they supported independent power producers, and yet also indicating how independent power producers couldn't possibly compete with Eskom. So that was a double message, on top of which independent analysts indicated quite clearly, and with very sound reasoning, that independent power producers could indeed produce efficiently and competitively in the country.
Okay, Nicholas.
So within the context of this monopoly, we really need to start looking at breaking the monopoly and looking at the reality and finding a good creative solution, not just one based on tariff increases.
Okay. All right, let me just hold you there. Let's take yet another quick break and we'll continue with this interesting discussion on power supply, so do stay with us.